Hi, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Teslark, and today I'm going to show you how you can preserve a real spider web using epoxy resin. For this project, I'm making a little bit of a spiderweb diorama, so I'll also be showing you how you can use some dried flowers and also dried citrus slices to make a really interesting piece of resin art. All of the materials that I use for this project will be linked in the description below, so all of that information will be down there for you. And let's get started. This mold is so large that it comes with these wooden crutches, and that's just going to help this piece keep its shape when I pour in the resin so that the sides don't buckle out. So I'm making sure that I've got all of that set up before I pour my first layer, and my first layer is going to be this black resin. So I'm trying this pre-pigmented black epoxy resin, and I've tried it a couple times now and I do quite like it. It's a 1-to-1 ratio resin, so I'm starting out by mixing 8 ounces of resin. So I measured out 4 ounces of resin, and to that I'm adding another 4 ounces of my hardener, so that I've got 8 fluid ounces in total. Once I've got both parts of my resin measured, I'm going to go ahead and mix those parts together, making sure that I'm scraping both the sides and the bottom of my container as I go. Especially with this pigmented resin, you really want to make sure that both parts of your resin are evenly incorporated, otherwise you can have some problems when it comes to curing. And now that my resin is fully mixed up, I'm going to go ahead and begin to add that to my mold, pouring from kind of a high, slow stream to get some of those air bubbles to pop on the way down. And let me know in the comments if you've tried pigmented resin before. This is my first experience using this black resin, and like I said earlier in the video, I do like it quite a lot. I think that it saves a little bit of time, it's pretty convenient, and it's really pigmented, a nice inky black. So overall, I'm pretty happy with this product. But let me know, have you tried this in the past? Is it something you've been curious about? Just let me know. And I decided that my black wasn't quite thick enough, so I went ahead and mixed up another large batch of resin. This time I mixed up another 16 ounces, so I used 24 ounces total to make my first layer of black resin. And I just wanted to add a little bit more black because I didn't want the black to be so far at the bottom that the spiderweb was sitting through a whole lot of clear resin. Poe, my little kitty, says hi. She's sitting on my lap right now. So I went ahead and added some more resin just to make sure that I had a really nice chunk of black, because that's what I'm going to be using to put my spider web on, and then I'll be adding some more clear resin on the top. So after a quick hit with my heat gun to pop any bubbles that are forming, I'm going to go ahead and cover this up and let it cure completely before pulling it out of the mold. So I left it for about 24 hours and I pulled it out, and this side is looking really smooth, really nice and black. So that's the side that we're going to be using for our spider web. The next part of this video is kind of chaotic, and I apologize in advance. I also needed to ask my husband Chad for some help because the spider web that I had my eye on was just a little bit out of my reach. But essentially the process is to take some white spray paint and very delicately, gently spray the spider web. And then we sprayed some clear hairspray onto the resin piece where we wanted the web to stick. Then you want to line your piece up with the web, and you just want to push your piece through the spider web. Yes! 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 And now that we have our spider web, it's time to take this piece back inside, get it back into the mold, and set those crutches back up again. Doing that very carefully. I don't want to touch any of the spider web to disturb it at all. In the course of making this project, I remembered that I had a vegetable dehydrator, so I went ahead and made my own lemon slices. I will link some pre-made dehydrated lemon slices for you, and I'll also link this dehydrator just in case you want to do it yourself. But I cut up 3 or 4 lemons into about a 1/4 inch rounds, and then I just put that into my dehydrator until they weren't sticky anymore. So I think that I left them in for about 24 hours or so. For this project, I'm going to be using some flowers that come pre-pressed and pre-preserved, but I do have a couple of videos on here showing how you can press flowers yourself, so I'll make sure to link a couple of those in the description as well, so you can check those out when you're done with this video if you're interested. We did end up with a bit of a hole on that left side corner in the web, so I'm going to focus some of my botanicals on that area just to cover that up, starting with some leaves and some greenery, and just using a little bit of jeweler's glue and a piece of wire to set that glue onto each piece before pressing it down onto my resin. The glue I'm using today is my E600 glue. It's a jeweler's glue, and once again I'll have that linked in the description down below. And I'm using a piece of wire because I don't have any toothpicks handy handy, but if you happen to have some toothpicks, that would work as well. So I started with my greens. I added some of my dried lemon slices and a couple flowers, and then just to another one of these corners, I'm gonna add some more of my botanical pieces. And I've seen a lot of people dip their lemon slices and botanicals in resin before setting them into the piece, and that helps to minimize air bubbles. But because I'm more concerned about composition in this piece, I've decided to just go ahead and glue my pieces down before adding the resin, and then I'm just going to be really picky with it and check on it every 10 or so minutes just to make sure that I'm getting any air bubbles that might be forming. But after I'm happy with how my botanicals look, I'm going to pour my first layer of clear resin. I decided to pour this in a couple different layers because I wanted this piece to have a lot of depth and dimension. So I went ahead and I mixed and measured up another 8 ounces of clear resin, and I'm going to start by drizzling that onto my botanical pieces using a popsicle stick, and I'm really just focusing especially around the lemons where there's a little bit of space because I want to try to make sure to minimize air bubbles. But like I said, I'm just going to be checking on this piece constantly for about 30 minutes or so just to make sure that I'm getting rid of any air bubbles using either a toothpick or a piece of wire and my heat gun. So here, just taking that heat gun over the entire piece, making sure I've got all those little bubbles gone, and then I'll cover it up until it's completely cured. And here we are in the future. So I went ahead and I let this piece set up for 24 hours, and I think it's looking really beautiful. But I'm going to add one more layer of botanicals to this piece before adding the last layer of resin. So just adding a couple little detail flowers here. I especially love the way the Queen Anne's lace looks against that black background. And I'm just going to add a couple more detail flowers before I pour my final layer of resin. And again, check on it the same way that I have before with my heat gun, making sure that there's no bubbles forming. But after making this project, I really want to try it again and do it all clear and do like 5 or 6 different layers of botanicals. I think that would look really cool. Let me know what you think of that idea in the comments. All right, so I went ahead and I let this piece cure overnight. It's totally solid, super clear, and it's looking really great. So I'm just gonna pop it out of the mold carefully. And so it looks like a little bit of the clear resin ran over the edge, which I thought it might, but I can just take my sander and sand that down really easily. Overall, the layering in this came out so cool, and I'm really excited to hear what you guys think about it in the comments below. Overall, I'm super happy with how the black resin turned out. It's super highly pigmented. This resin from Let's Resin is really clear, really nice to work with. And though I do have a little bit of sanding and a little bit more work to do on this piece, I'm super happy with how it turned out overall. Thank you so much for being here with me. Thank you for spending part of your day with me, especially if you made it all the way to the end of this video. And if you did make it all the way to the end, leave me some sort of animal emoji just so that I know that you made it. I really hope that this video inspires you to make something of your own today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!